101.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. If you are a mechanic, then you don't worry about taking your car to somebody else. You bring your car to a mechanic, right? That's what I do because I don't know how to fix cars. So if you have something wrong with plumbing, you call a plumber, right? But for some reason, when it comes to your money, you don't always go to a professional. And I want to have you listen to a guy who does this for a living. So this is the same as going. Robin and I, Robin's introducing me to the show Friends. I know that's been off the air forever, but so I'm watching this show Friends for the first time since when did it start, Robin? In the 90s?
Yeah.
So I'm like 20 years late.
Or 94.
So one of the characters is discovering the stock market, right? Mm-hmm. Was it Monica?
Yes.
Is that the girl? And so she's playing the stock market and losing money, not making money, right?
Yeah, she did at first, but then she's lost it all.
Oh, really? So that changes? The storyline changes later on? Okay.
She lost it all.
James Virgilio, I hope I said it, Virgilio is on the phone. He is one of the country's leading fiduciary investors and financial planners. He's an adjunct professor at Warrington College of Business College at the University of Florida. He was named a Gator 100 honoree at the University of Florida, and he's the co-founder of Chacon Diaz and Virgilio Wealth Management. James, I'm just slaughtering your name. It's an honor to have you on the show. He's going to tell us how to avoid the common missteps that are made when choosing a financial advisor. So not only can you make a mistake by not having one, but you might make a mistake choosing one as well, right?
Exactly.
Good morning, James. I apologize for getting your name wrong. How you doing?
Oh, hey, no worries. It's a tough Italian last name, and it's Di Virgilio, but there's a lot of vowels. I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Good. And where are you? Are you in Florida?
I'm in Gainesville, Florida. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And you're in your listener area. Yep.
All right. Well, come on down one day and be in the studio. It'd be nice to see you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, yeah, my thinking about this it's an old thought I've had that I go to the car mechanic to fix my car. I call a plumber if something needs fixed, but I don't ever go to a professional finance guy when I'm thinking about investing money. So I'm part of that. I'm the guilty crowd.
That's interesting. That puts you in a different kind of minority because a lot of people do go see a financial person, but unfortunately, it'd be like going to your mechanic, but there's two very different types of mechanics, and you don't know that. And that's kind of what goes on in the financial world, and that's one of the trickier things about selecting a financial advisor or selecting the right one.
So how do we? I mean, aside from looking at advertisements on the internet, I guess, but I mean, in the day it used to be TV, but now you find ads on the internet, right?
That's right. Yeah, you can find ads. Or hopefully you're doing it a little more scientifically. I like to encourage people when they're looking for a wealth manager or a financial advisor to look for the best person. A lot of times people will select their brother, their cousin, their uncle, or their friend. But really, who you choose to manage your wealth, regardless of how much money you have, will make a significant difference in how many or how much you accumulate in resources. And I'll give it to you this way. Who you choose to manage your money in your financial planning should make more money for you than you make in your career. So take whatever you're going to make in your career. Over the course of your financial planning and investment lifetime, you should make more. And so doing it right is really, really crucial.
Good rule of thumb.
And you promote, you advocate for using financial planners that are not associated with banks.
Right. And that's kind of the trickiest thing is really there's a couple of main things you want to look for. And the first thing is you want to look for a fiduciary. A fiduciary, fancy Latin word that really just means to basically act on behalf of someone's best interest, to place into trust or to guardianship. Less than 15% of financial advisors and financial firms are fiduciaries, which means the overwhelming majority of them do not have to act in your best interest. This does not make them bad, per se, if you go to Merrill Lynch or Bank of America or Morgan Stanley, but it does mean that you're going with more of a salesperson or a broker than you are with someone who is obligated to do what's best for you, and that tends to lead to less education. So if you're talking about financial planning, only 1 in 5 financial planners are certified financial planners, which means they have a board-certified education in what they're doing. Most of them are just doing it. And again, that's not to knock anyone doing it, but there's just a very wide range of skill when you're selecting an advisor. And it's very difficult for the person selecting an advisor to know how educated or whether or not their advisor is a fiduciary. And so it's crucial to ask. I like to say, here's what are the two things you do. First, ask if your advisor is a fiduciary at all times. Will you serve as my fiduciary at all times in all capacities? That's one of the most important things you can do. And if you get that question right and they say yes, the odds are very, very good they will also have the education that you're looking for.
So I want to tell you about a balancing act that I had to figure out about 20 years ago. I worked at an assisted living facility. I was actually the activities director, so I was the guy arranging for the field trips and the bingo games, and you get the picture, right? But one of the other things I did was I invited guests to either perform music or to speak. So when it came to guys in your profession, the balancing act was because I wanted the residents to have some good information, but I didn't want to be, suggesting that this was somebody I'm endorsing, or to have them sit through actually an advertising moment where somebody's advertising his or her own services. However, and here's the other part that I had to figure out. They were asking, the people who lived there were saying to me, Larry, can you invite somebody who can talk about investing money? Now, the part that was interesting to me is these people, first of all, have money. If they're living in there, they have money. Second of all, they all know that their life is not very far from being over. And third of all, they're thinking about what to do with their money for their heirs. So how would you have approached that? If I said to you, look, I really want you to speak to them, but I don't want it to be an ad, but at the same time, I want them to have good information for their end-of-life investments. Can you help me out? How would you handle that one?
Sure, and that's a great question, because the majority of people you will approach are definitely going to have, unfortunately, in the financial world, some sort of agenda or like you're talking about, a sales pitch.
And I can't blame them, but at the same time, in my job, I had to find somebody who wasn't doing that.
Sure, and that's very possible, and that's what you're looking for in a fiduciary. If you're a fiduciary, I must put your interest ahead of my own. That is step one at all times. So for me, whether I'm lecturing at the University of Florida, I'm talking with my clients, I'm talking with you on the radio, or I'm coming in to speak in an engagement you're talking about, my sole job is to put everyone in that room's interest ahead of my own. It has nothing to do with my firm or them becoming my client. It has entirely to do with what is best for them in their situation. And so the goal, when I do something like that, is to encourage them to learn about things and steps they can take to improve their position, their situation, based upon what I know to be the best data and the best research given their circumstance. And that's hopefully what you would want anyone to do for you. But we know in life that so often people serve their own interests ahead of our interests. But I think being a fiduciary legally means you have to do that. And you're lessening the chance that someone is going to come in and attempt to do something different.
So speaking of balancing acts, I'm sure that it's true for you too. See, our listening audience is so weird in that we have a university, lots of young people, and then we have retirees, lots of old people. So I'm guessing the information you give to a young person might be considerably different than an older person. Am I right?
It could be, or it could not be. What's funny is there's sort of a myth that's persisted for a while that as soon as you reach retirement age, your investment strategy will change. Well, that's entirely dependent upon how much income you're taking in retirement and what your plans are. As you mentioned, you may have heirs, you may be reaching the end of your life, and your primary motivation is actually for the next generation, in which case your investment strategy becomes, again, much like one you would have if you were in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. So it really does depend on what the money is going to be used for. It's just not as simple as saying, if you're young, do this, and if you're older, do this. It is situational. But I think the important thing is there's absolutely a best thing to do. No matter what your circumstance is, there is a best course of action. And finding that is the important thing.
And you also advocate against buying a home but renting.
That's an interesting one that we could spend, I'm sure, a whole episode unpacking. But it's been mathematically known for a long time that purchasing a home you live in, not one that you're renting out, but just you're living in, is not a good investment. In fact, on average, you're losing about 11% a year when you factor in all of the cost of owning a home, property taxes, a mortgage, upkeep, etc. Renting will also cost you money, so it's important to note that as well. It's much, much better to look at buying your home as you would buying a car. It's not as bad as buying a car. You're not going to lose as much money, but it is that way. And there's a myth that persists. 8 out of 10 Americans think that owning a residential home is, in fact, the best investment you can make. Yet if you were to go right now to Harvard or Yale or Stanford and ask their real estate professor if a residential home was, in fact, an investment, they would all tell you emphatically, no, it is not. It will cost you money over your lifetime. That's very confusing, especially to people in the state of Florida.
All right, so a short interview never answers all the questions. Can you direct us to a website so that our listeners can learn more about what you do?
Certainly. If you go to CDD Wealth, so CharlieDavidDavidWealth.com, or you attempt to even come close to Googling any one of those names you heard today, including my own name, it'll pop up. And there's a wealth of articles that have been written that are independent and published separately that cover not only the home buying topic, but a plethora of others.
James D. Virgilio, how'd I do that time?
That was perfect. Well said.
Thank you, James. Thank you for being on. The website again is cddwealth.com. cddwealth.com. Thank you, James.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. We'll be right back.
Here is your 1-minute news brief. One person is dead after an early morning fire destroyed a mobile home in Lake County. Ocala Fire